I'm Alex Bowers from learntoprogram.tv, and in this course I'll be showing you how to start off developing for a game. Now this game is going to be a text-based game, so it's not going to be too flashy and too extravagant. However, it'll be a perfect example of how to start game development. Now what this game's called is Monster, and it's basically a text-based game where you have a character and you move it using WASD. The key is WASD, which moves it north, east, south and west, same way that other games might do so as well. And what this allows us to do is have a monster which is initially hidden, and we have a flask and a trap. Now if the player moves over the trap, then it activates and wakes up the monster, and once the monster is awake, the monster is able to chase after the character. And also, the aim of the game is for the character to find the flask. Now, the flask, the monster, and the trap are all hidden from view until the monster is awakened, and then the monster is visible. The trap then disappears, but the flask remains hidden. The aim of the game is for the player to find the flask and reach it before the monster catches them and eats him. So that's how this game is going to run, and I'm going to show you how we program that. And first things we need to do is we need to define a class. Now this class is going to be called main, and I've also created a page here called main.py. Now with the class of main, make sure you have a capital M. It's just good standard practice to do so. We are going to define a couple of variables, and we're going to define the initializing function. The initializing function is double underscore init double underscore and then brackets, and that's got a self written inside it. And then all functions end with a colon as well, which tells it that the definition for the function is over and to start with the code block. Now within here, we're not actually going to do anything, and so we're going to use the keyword pass. And what that does is it just tells it to skip the rest of that function, and that function's done basically. Later on, this function will contain something, but since we haven't created what it's going to contain yet, there's no point us defining it. Now we've got some variables to define as well. Now these variables are going to be the settings and the current settings for each segment of the game. Now some parts of the game are going to only affect certain functions, and so they will be defined within that function. But for the rest of the game, these are going to be global variables, which makes it quite useful to store them outside of the definitions of functions and inside the main class area. And what we have is the main width, and we're going to give that a value of 5, and we've got the max height as well, which I'm going to make 5 as well. That means that our grid is going to be 5 tall by 5 wide, which we'll see in a little while once we create the draw grid function. Now we also have a character, and we have to see whether or not the character is alive. By default the character will be alive, and we also have a character 1, and by default the character has not 1. Now alongside the character we also have a monster, and so we have the monster monster awake. We can't actually kill the monster in this, all we can do is run away from it, so there's no point having an alive variable. Now alongside monster awake we also have monster awakened. Now this is a very similar variable, but it has one crucial difference which I'll cover in a later part of this course. Now finally we have monster move per turn, and that's going to be equal to 2 by default. Now you can set this to any value you want, assuming it's positive and greater than 1. However, I wouldn't set it too high because it would mean that the game is basically impossible to win, and I wouldn't set it too low because that way monster could never really reach you. If you can move 1 ahead of what the monster can move, then it seems kind of pointless to have the monster chasing after you. Okay, so that is everything that we have within the class initially, and there's one more thing to do, and that is to call the class. And the way that we do that, capital M, is by defining a variable and then setting it equal to the name of the class with some brackets. Now since we're not passing any values into the initializing function, we don't need to put anything within these parentheses here. So what we've got here is just a very simple class that currently does nothing but creates a couple of variables, and if we look over here in the outline we'll see all of these variables listed. Now this side panel over here is going to be very useful for us in the future, and so what I would recommend you do is if you can't see it there, if you go to the window tab across the top, if you're using a Mac, go down to Show View and click on Outline. That will help you significantly later on. And also, if you don't have Console, open up Console as well. And that is all that we need to look at. So I will see you in a next video where we'll be starting the actual proper creation of this game. So thank you for watching. I'm Max Bowers from LedgeProgram.tv, and I'll see you soon.